For those that are unaware, the GH3 sits right above Panasonic's GH2. It's their latest flagship compact system camera. Let's take a look at the GH3's latest features. Much like the GH2, the GH3 has a 16 megapixel sensor. It has a micro four thirds mount, so micro four thirds lenses can be attached. Now this is a different sensor to the GH2, and the differences basically allow you to have a slightly wider ISO range, and the ISO range on this camera runs from 200 to 12,800, but this can be expanded. It can be expanded to 125 to 25,600. The GH3 also boasts a brand new Venus image processor that enables it to shoot at 20 frames per second, provided you're set to JPEG. If you want to shoot RAW and JPEG, this frame rate will reduce to 6 frames per second, and there's also the option to shoot at 4 frames per second and 2 frames per second as well. At the rear of the GH3 has a vari-angle touchscreen. Now this is very useful because you can literally flip it out by 180 degrees and just tilt it by 270 degrees. Really useful for low or high angled shooting. The resolution of the screen has also improved over the GH2. It's now 614K dot, whereas previously on the GH2 it was 460K dot. One of the great benefits of the touchscreen is that you can just move your AF point around the frame very easily. Here I'm just going to touch the camera's touchscreen and I can just move the AF point anywhere within the frame. And you can also just increase or decrease the size of your AF point using the command dial up on the top there. Got rather a large AF point there, so let's just minimise it and just make it slightly smaller and just reposition it and take our shot. One of the great things about the new touchscreen on the GH3 is how responsive it is. It's really responsive to the lightest of touches, and it's very much like a smartphone in operation. You don't need to press it hard, just a very light touch will get you where you want to be in the menu or where you're selecting your AF point. One thing you may have noticed about the GH3, it's rather different in design to the GH2. It's a lot bulkier as a camera, and it's kind of resembling the same shape as a DSLR. You'll be able to see here that the hand grip is much bulkier. You can now wrap your hand around it really nicely, and it's got a nice rubberized grip that stretches all the way around to the back of the camera. Previous users of the GH series will know that the cameras used to have just one command dial to control aperture and shutter speed, but on the GH3, much like a DSLR, there are now 2 dials, one here on the top plate and one here at the back of the camera. It makes for a much faster and more intuitive operational experience. The GH2 also got a bit of a slating because it only had a 2.5mm jack for attaching a microphone. This has all changed on the GH3 now, and we can now see that we've got a 3.5mm port here for attaching an external microphone, and just beneath this you've also got another 3.5mm port where you can just plug in headphones for audio monitoring. As for the GH3's recording modes, you can shoot in AVC HD, MP4 or .mov. And we can just go back by just hitting the touch screen, and if we just go down and take a look at the record quality as well, you can just see here you can shoot full HD 1920 by 1080p videos at 50p, 50i, 25p and also 24p. With more and more compact system cameras introducing Wi-Fi connectivity, Panasonic have decided to do the same, and the GH3 supports Wi-Fi, and you can just activate it here on the top of the camera using this button. When you activate Wi-Fi, it basically allows you just to communicate the camera directly with your smartphone, so it saves you having to upload your images straight to your PC first. So after installing the Panasonic Lumix Link app, you can see here that I'm now looking at what the camera sees on my phone. It's looking at exactly the same image, and when I zoom in as well, you'll also be able to see, if I just zoom in very closely, you'll also just be able to see on the right that on the smartphone it also zooms in as well. Now Panasonic haven't actually finished this yet, and this is just a pre-production sample, but we will be able to take images and zoom in with a para zoom lens very soon. Studying our image quality, the GH3 produced excellent exposures, and it coped very well in some tricky scenes where there was a stark contrast between bright highlights and dark shadows. Clean, noise-free images are produced between ISO 125 and ISO 1600, but as we notice, noise begins to creep in above this point. The results at 3200 and 6400 are usable with some noise reduction applied, but if you push past 6400, noise will start to degrade the image quality, so you'll want to try and avoid the 2 highest ISO settings. Comparing an unprocessed RAW file up against a processed JPEG revealed subtle differences. JPEG files are slightly brighter in the dark shadowed areas, whereas RAW files resolve more detail in the brightest highlights. Shooting our test chart revealed the 16 megapixel sensor was capable of rendering 32 lines per millimetre at ISO 100. While this is a very impressive performance for a Micro Four Thirds chip, APS-C sensors have scored slightly higher in the past. Overall, the GH3 is an excellent compact system camera, and it's a good addition to Panasonic's Lumix lineup. We like the new additions such as the beefier hand grip and the really responsive touch screen. Just check out What Digital Camera for the full review of the GH3.